join to today. So we start a little later than the timing. I hope you can understand that. So let me kick off for our webinar. We talk about the topic of work-life balance, or we usually say that work-life integration. So today we will be like co-host by Mercer Mass Benefits and ICAS. I believe that all of you are very used to the brand name of Mercer. However, let me go very quick about ICAS. So this is the host of our webinar today to talk about a very not new, but very interesting topic to share about work-life balance. So let's see, we talk about ICAS a little bit. So ICAS, we are like the corporate wellness service provider. We are global provider around the world. And it started the first year in 1987 in UK. And we have like 36 years so far to provide the service to the corporate. So what service is it? What is the corporate wellness service that ICAS providing to the companies, the corporations so far? So I will go through the quick information about the first one. We talk about the employee well-being, or some people call employee assistance program, or some people call EAP. So let's talk about, let's say like EAP is easy to remember. So EAP, we know that we usually deal with a lot of issue, a lot of challenge. We happy, we sad all the time. And the performance of employee also like connected directly to that, our emotion, our well-being. So to be like a provider, provide the service counseling to the employees. ICAS, we have the team in the country and provide that service to your employee and also the dependents of these employees, because of course we connected very well together. So I will show you one short video about like 2 minutes about how important, why our emotion, our well-being is so important like that, and what kind of like area or what kind of category that ICAS is provide a service to the corporate.
What is employee well-being and why does it even matter? Well, progressive workplaces have come to realize that employees don't stop being parents or partners or people when they walk into the office or workshop or mine. And similarly, people don't just forget about their workplace successes, failures, and stress when they come home. We carry our health and wellness, our disappointments, joys, our levels of comfort or distress with us wherever we are. This means that our sense of well-being affects how happy, satisfied, and healthy we feel in all aspects of our life. And if we are struggling in one area, it's very likely to affect how we cope in other areas of our lives. For example, if I'm going through a divorce in my personal life, I'm likely to be distracted and possibly down or irritable even at work, and it may even impact on my work performance and relationship. Firstly, it is important to understand that ICAS is an independent provider to your organization, which means that when you use any part of the service, whether counseling or legal support, the details of your engagement remain completely confidential. The counseling services are available 24/7, 365. Call us whenever you need support. The services and the phone call are completely free to you. And lastly, it is available to you and your immediate family in the household with you. So what kind of issues might you use the service for? The list is endless, but some common presenting problems include stress, relationship difficulties at home and at work, money problems, addictive behaviors or depression and anxiety matters. The components of the program are as follows. ICAS provides a variety of services to help people manage these kinds of difficulties, and these include psychosocial counseling and advisory services, life management services, manager support services, trauma support services, online wellness services, often known as e-care, musculoskeletal health services, and absence, incapacity, disability, and support services.
So you can like maybe in the video you can see like, okay, here's something about e-learning, and it's also like the second important service that we are offering. And today is one of the showcase that you can see that we do a lot of workshop. We do a lot of health talk. We're sharing about like, okay, about the well-being, about like my happiness, or like when sometimes like I said like what is it. And today the showcase like work-life balance, and also like one of the workshop that we would like to offer to you. And I hope that during this workshop or after this workshop you will get a very good message from our speaker. So let's go to our speaker, Karen. I hope that you turn on the camera, and let me introduce you to the audience today. So Karen is our facilitator of ICAS and stayed for a long time with ICAS. You can see that her expertise here: leadership, management, well-being, development, abuse, addiction, behavior addiction, you know, a lot of expertise that she working so far. And she believes that everyone have like will be like the best version of them if they have the good support from the people around you, from your friend, from your family, and especially from your company. Hi, Karen. Thank
Hello,
you for
Troy.
joining us today. Yeah, so this is very short introduction to you. I believe that there is more experience from you, like, and we would like to hear from you to sharing about like work and life. We usually call like work and life balance or work-life integration. Not a matter about like how we call, but today we want to learn from you and what is your experience, what is your advice to balance work and life. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Troy. Thank you for that introduction, and good afternoon to everybody. It's wonderful to be joining you today. Yes, it's a pleasure to be representing ICAS today. I've been with the organization for 11 years, and I'm a social worker by profession, specializing in employee wellness, as you hear. So thank you for this opportunity, as I'm going to speak to you about, as Troy was saying, work-life balance. But these days we're working towards work-life integration. And interestingly enough, the other day, I heard someone referring to it as work-life fusion. And I like that as well, because, you know, how do we get that fusion? How do we fuse these areas in our life and help them to flow better? So that's what I'm going to be looking at with you today. Please, as I go along, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat. Any comments that you'd like to make, you're very welcome to put them in the chat. Troy and I at the end will also just look at the chat and let's see if we can engage for a minute or two before we end off. So what I'm going to go through with you, some of the themes and the content that will come through is, you know, what is this work-life balance that we thrive for? What is the difference perhaps between balance and integration? How do we manage our energies to try cover all those areas of our lives? And then how do we deal with the guilt that comes up when we're struggling and we're stretched and pulled in one area more than the other area? What is some of the self-care that we can engage in, and why is it important? Boundaries, we'll look at that. And then I'll just finish with a quick summary again of the ICAS services in a second or two. Right, so let's get going. And I want to just ask you a question, if you can just think of it for yourself right now. But what does work-life balance mean to you? You know, if you could picture it, what would it look like in a picture? Especially right now, it's almost the end of the day. You've probably had a busy day. What does it look like for you right now? Does it look something like this? I think this maybe is what mine looks like. Very busy, hands everywhere, lots going on. You know, busy trying to drink a coffee, trying to take notes, trying to work on emails, trying to answer the phone and keep up to date with things, and also somewhere in there trying to cope with family life as well. Or does your work-life balance maybe look something like this? A mythical creature that you just can't seem to find, that you're searching for and that you're longing for, because everything just feels so overwhelming at the moment and that life feels a little bit out of control. So we'll talk about finding that unicorn as we go along today. But this is what we've been made to believe that work-life balance looks like, or that this is what we should be trying to achieve, that equal balance between our work and between our lives, that scale should be perfect, 50-50 splits between the two. And unfortunately, that is a myth. That is a unicorn that we're never going to find. It's just not possible to have this split 50-50 every day. And that's something, that's difficult for us to sometimes make peace with. So we need to keep in mind that there's no 50-50 split, and then we can really start working on it. But why has work-life balance or work-life integration become such a hot topic for us? Why has it become this thing that we're trying to achieve? And perhaps as you're listening to me right now, you can relate to that. But next week is November, This year has been on fast forward. I'm not sure if you feel the same way. We've tried to get so much done this year, and it's gone so quickly. And we have so little time left with so much we still need to achieve and we still need to get done. And that can be overwhelming. And I think where that comes from is really where we're at, no matter where we are in the world. Work has become more demanding. We have more responsibilities at work. We're also struggling at times to deal with this hybrid workspace that we find ourselves in. Some days we might be in the office or at a client. Other days we're at home. Some days our children are at home, or our spouse might be working from home as well because it's their home day, not their office day. So all of this is happening around us. We're online a lot longer than we used to be as well. We're logging on earlier in the morning. We're not necessarily taking lunch breaks or any kind of break. We're fitting in more in the day, and the days become longer that we log off later at night. So with that as well, with everything that's happening with work and the extra hours and the extra work we are putting in with these extra demands at work, is also home is not separate. There's also increased responsibilities at home. And as we go through our different life stages, those responsibilities might change as well. Sometimes we might have young children, for example, that are quite demanding. Or we might have children, that are going to school. Or as I said, we have a spouse or other family members that are working from home with us. And we're trying to run a home at the same time that we are trying to achieve everything at work. This is then what happens with work-life balance. If you look at the size of our work and what it takes up in our life, if that blue space was our entire life, as we know it, work takes up the biggest part of it. And there's little bits of self, friends, hobbies, family, and interests that we try to fit in there into, our day, into our life. And then looking at the next one, looking at work and then looking at life in the blue, sometimes friends and families take priority. We get kicked right out the picture. We become this tiny bubble on the outside. Our hobbies and our interests fall away as well because we just don't have time and we're so stretched. So finding that balance is really, really hard for all of us. And something that I want you to hold in mind, and the previous image maybe shared that a little bit with you, but it's not just work and life, two easy categories like that. There's actually 4 spheres of human life or human activity, and each one is equally important. There's the self, so looking at us and how we look after ourselves, how we invest in ourselves. It's our mental health, it's our physical health, it's everything that makes us who we are. There's the community that we find ourselves in. And that community can be different for each of us, or we can be part of many different communities. when I reflect on myself and the communities I'm involved in, I'm involved in my neighborhood. We have a community here where we try to look after each other, and we have a very family orientated community. I have my friends, that I form a community with, my volunteer groups that I form a community with, and some of my professional groups are part of my community as well. Then there's family, and family includes, all our loved ones, as well as our friends and our social circle that we have, to support us. And then there's work, which takes up a good 8 to 10 hours of our day. So these are the 4 areas, or the 4 human activities and spaces that we actually are trying to spread ourselves across, and that we're trying to look after, and that we're trying to keep happy. So it's not easy to do. And where do we sometimes go wrong? I mean, perhaps as I'm speaking, you can think of a few spaces and places where you get it a little bit wrong. And it's nothing to feel guilty about. We'll talk about the guilt later. But work demands tend to come first. Work is where we earn our salary, where we're able to provide to our family because of the salaries that we earn. So, of course, work is vitally important. For many of us, we might be workaholics, or we really identify with the role and the responsibilities that we have at work, and it gives us a sense of satisfaction. So we put a lot of our energy into work, and those demands are going to come first, especially when the pressure's on at work and there are lots of deadlines. Sometimes we lack assertiveness. We just don't know how to say no. No is a very difficult word. It's the shortest word, but it's such a difficult word to say. And sometimes it's because of our boundaries. It's because we like to please people. We want to make everybody around us happy. And we'll look at some of those boundaries later and just what we could do about that. Priorities are sometimes, in different times of our life, our priorities change. Again, our family might be a priority at the moment. Our work might be a priority because we're working towards a promotion or even just towards a deadline. But also, there's days where our priorities differ. I might have a sick child today, and as much as I have 8 hours of work that I need to get done, my child is a priority because I need to get him to a medical doctor because I'm concerned about him. So our priorities can even change in the day. Poor time management is something we struggle with. We all get 24 hours in the day, but how do we work those 24 hours in the best way that we can to deal with all those 4 spheres of our lives? And sometimes it's a little bit about self-discipline, getting easily distracted by our phones and social media, struggling to focus on a project we should be working on or a deadline we need to be working on that day. Sometimes we're disorganized and we just can't get on top of things because, we're struggling to find things on our desks. Our laptop is a mess. Even our desktop of our laptop, when you're trying to find different files, you can't remember where you saved it. So little things like that make us disorganized can take time from us and make us feel like we don't have control and can play a bit in tipping that scale in our balance. Sometimes people use work to escape from home. They might be workaholics and very, very focused on their work, but it's because there's problems at home that they may be trying to get away from and they don't want to deal with it right now. I'm thinking of the video that Tra played for us where the speaker was mentioning, someone could be going through a divorce or a relationship problem at home. They may not have the capacity to be dealing with that right now, or they don't know that the EAP is there to support them, and they find then that they throw themselves into their work to try get away from the problem, which we know isn't good for our mental health. There's also self-destructive or bad habits that get in our way sometimes. It could be drinking too much, staying up too late at night, watching too much television, spending time on social media, socializing too much and not focusing, where we need to in terms of our work. And all of that just causes chaos with our lives as well. And then there's the guilt. If I'm spending too much time focusing on my family right now, because my family was moaning that I'm spending too much time with my work and I'm too stressed, then I feel guilty because I'm not putting enough time and enough focus at work. And when I'm focusing too much on my family, I'm worried that my manager is going to say, what's going on? You don't seem interested in your work. You're not meeting your deadlines. And I'm going to feel guilty about that. So all of this plays on our mind all the time. But what is the price that we pay if we don't try to find some integration or some sort of healthy balance in those 4 areas? Firstly, increased stress and anxiety. It's struggling with our sleep at night. It's our appetite that can get affected. It's that racing heart sensation. It's sometimes the heaviness on the chest that we can't breathe because we just can't get on top of things and we feel completely overwhelmed. We start to decline in our performance at work because we just can't keep all those balls up, in the air. We're missing deadlines. Our manager's noticing that we're not as focused as we should be. And we start to get very overwhelmed and worry that that performance is going to continue to slip. Relationships become stressed at work and at home. We have our loved ones telling us that, they're frustrated with us because we're so stressed and that we're spending so much time working and they feel neglected. And then going to work, sometimes there's conflict at work because our colleagues are picking up that we're short-tempered, that we're taking our stress out on them, or that we're not doing what we should be doing at work. So there's a deterioration in physical and emotional functioning that takes place as well. We really start to take it on. Again, things like eating, feeling sad, feeling low, feeling moody, feeling like I'm just not in control of things, and it really impacts our health in many ways. And a big thing that starts to happen here is that we lose a sense of satisfaction in life. If you've ever seen a hamster going fast on one of those hamster wheels, we get stuck on that wheel. And it's like we're the hamster just going round and round and round and running and running and running and running. Life is passing us by. Our children are growing up in front of our eyes and we barely noticing them. We just feel like life has no meaning anymore, like we just can't get that sense of fulfillment or happiness or satisfaction because there's just too much going on and it's more than I can handle. And of course, then we run the risk of burning out, to the point that we just lose interest in our work as well, that we just don't seem to be able to give our all to anything. And it, again, starts to affect our mental well-being. I just want to take a second, try to check that everybody can still hear me, that I'm not speaking to myself. And if anybody has any questions or comments at this point that they'd like to share.
Everything perfect, Karen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's look at the reality then, which I think I'm sharing with you in terms of, it sometimes is a bleak reality because there's that sense of loss of control and we can't get on top of things and we're so stretched in every direction and pulled in every direction. But how do we then, manage our energy and take back control? The thing is that we only have so much energy in the day, just as we only have so much time. So how do we spread that energy, but how do we also fill up that energy so that we can keep going through the day and we can, give our best where we need to give our best? And I want you to look here at the batteries that I've put here for you. If your cell phone were to be on the red, what would you do? I'd like to think you probably, or I do think I know that you would go plug your cell phone in because you don't want your cell phone to shut down or to die because you can't cope without your cell phone, right? Even when it starts to get into the orange, we worry. Our laptop, our cell phones, we'll go plug it in. But what about ourselves? When do we plug ourselves in? When do we charge our battery again? And maybe as I'm talking to you now, you can check in with yourself. Where is your battery? You know, it's almost the end of the workday. It's almost the end of the week. Where is your battery? Are you full? Are you on the green? Are you running, quite low? Or are you on the red? And is it time to look at how you can charge up your energy again so that you can keep managing all these tasks and responsibilities that you have? So some of the tips I'd like to share with you, and you're very welcome to see what works for you, and maybe you have some extra tips you'd like to share. You're very welcome, to put them in the chat for us and we can look at them afterwards. But commit to a morning routine. When you get up in the morning, you need to have some sort of control. If the morning starts with chaos, your whole day goes into chaos. I'm sure you can relate to that. The alarm goes off late. Suddenly you realize, you can't even find the right outfit to wear. You haven't even had a cup of coffee yet. You need to get children to school, or your spouse or family members are trying to get out the door. And you find yourself, just not getting on top of anything. And it just ripples into the rest of the day as well. So start with a good morning routine and see what you can prepare the evening before to make your morning a little bit easier. Maybe it's putting your coffee machine on if you like coffee, to make sure that the timer goes off in the morning and that your coffee is ready and it saves you some time. Put out, clothing the night before, pack lunches if you're going to the office. There's all those little things you could get done in the evening to make your next day start in a better way and in a smoother way so that it runs well. It's also important to take little breaks during the day. You can't sit at your desk or at your laptop for 8 hours without just getting up to even stretch your legs, to take in some fresh air, just to shift your thoughts a little bit from work, recharge that battery, make a nice cup of tea, sit and look out the window, or if you can sit outside in nature, sit outside, take it in, just help your brain to reset for a second or a few minutes, and then you can go back. It's so important, that we take those little breaks, because each little break helps to charge that battery. Get as organized as you can, especially, with work and with all the family demands that you have. Manage and plan your time. Have a schedule, whether it is that you use your laptop, maybe you're using Outlook tasks, or you're using your Google Calendar, whatever it is that works for you to help you set the day and put that time in that you need. And even those reminders, fetch child from school, PTA meeting tonight at the school, whatever it needs to be, you can put that in your diary and schedule the day and work in what you need to for work as well, in those projects and deadlines that you have. If it helps you, keep a notebook, maybe for ladies in our handbag, for men in our briefcase, or in a backpack with the laptop, whatever it might be, or even just next to your bed. Because sometimes when we are finally relaxing after a busy day, our thoughts start to run and we start to remember some of the important things we need to do. And that's a good time to write them down. You can even use your cell phone to send messages to yourself, or to record voice notes, or to take notes and email it through to yourself, so that the next day that to-do list is there and those reminders that you need are there. And also, highlight your priorities for the day. Remember, not everything is a priority for today. You might have a deadline for the end of the month that you can highlight. It's on your list that you need to get done. It's on your schedule, but you're going to schedule time for it tomorrow when you can, because you've got another deadline for today. It just helps you to feel less overwhelmed. Have realistic expectations of yourself. I can't stress that enough. you need to remember that you are human. You are a human with 24 hours in the day, and you should be sleeping 7 hours at least of those 24 hours to make sure that your battery is recharged, that your brain is functioning, and that you're getting good physical, health, or you building your physical health, shall I say. So remember that you're not superhuman. You're not a superhero. You don't have a cape. You are only human, and you can only do so much. So when you set goals for yourself, set goals that you can achieve, because that will also help you to feel motivated and to remind yourself that you have so much in your battery and you can only then get so much done. Switch off and unplug when you need to. You can't be, and we often are, we're trying to cook dinner and we're on our emails at the same time. Maybe we take our laptop into the kitchen with us, or we have our emails on our phone and we're working on our phone at the same time. Or we're doing homework with the child, and at the same time we're sitting doing emails, and we're not even really focusing on our child at that time. So when you can, switch off and unplug. That helps you to recharge your battery, because you can't be online all the time. Your brain gets exhausted from that. Keep things light and fun when you can. If you are in a meeting that can be a little bit less serious and there's an opportunity for colleagues to engage with each other and just check in with each other, do that and try to keep things a little bit light and bring some laughter and some fun into life where you can. And don't sweat the small stuff. I'm not sure if you've heard that saying before, but don't sweat the small stuff means, let go of some of the small things that are going to drain too much of your energy, too much of the things you can't control. The other day, my son had swimming practice after school, and I looked and I realized he'd left his swimming bag at home. And I immediately had guilt, because I thought, oh my goodness, now he's going to be in trouble at school. What's going to happen? And I realized I couldn't get to the school to take the bag to him. I had to let it go. And when he came home from school later in the day, he said to me, no, Mom, I didn't get into trouble. The teacher said to me I could just go play chess during that time, and I can do swimming tomorrow. So I would have wasted a lot of energy stressing about that, but it was a small thing that I could let go in the end, and everything worked out all right. Then try to dedicate even just 15 minutes to yourself every day. Just 15 minutes where you can be alone, where you can do something that you enjoy. And I'll go through a few little self-care tips just now that will be helpful for you. And then get started, just get started, because sometimes we feel we just can't get things done, but taking it one bite at a time, eating that elephant one bite at a time helps you to get started and to start ticking those things off the to-do list and feeling in control. So when guilt gets in the way, what do we do? Firstly, remember that your brain is wired to be negative. It's a survival instinct that we have, that as soon as we're feeling threatened, when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling overwhelmed, our brain goes into negative mode to protect us, and it will start to think the worst things, and that guilt and that negative self-talk will start to come through. So you will think things like, maybe with my experience with my son and his swimming bag, my negative thought was, and my negative voice said to me, oh, you're a terrible mom. How could you forget to give him his swim bag when he left the house today? That was one of the first thoughts that came to my head, until I was able to rationalize it and to put it into perspective that I'm not a bad mom. I was just also very rushed, and I'd just forgotten to give him the bag as much as he'd forgotten to take the bag when he left the house. So if you find yourself feeling guilty with your family, maybe guilty because you're feeling you're not giving 100% at work, acknowledge the guilt and let it go. You can't let it play on your mind all the time, because again, I tell you, you are only human. Take that negative self-talk and reframe it into something more positive. And I'm going to give you one or two little examples on the next slide. Understand what is in your control. And understand that not everything is in your control. Look at what you can control and focus on that. But the things you can't get control of and have no control over, you'll need to let go. And remind yourself of what you have achieved and what you have already done, that you've come a long way, you know, that you've already, even today, just had a really busy day and you got a lot done. Use that to motivate yourself and to keep yourself positive. And remind yourself that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. If you need to have a slower day because your battery is really, really flat, it's okay because you're human. And stop that catastrophic thinking, you know, that everything's going wrong and that nothing's going right. Catch yourself when you think like that and try your best to think more rationally. And then be kind to yourself. I've said that quite a bit already. So some of the examples of negative self-talk that you might have that harms you, that also slows you down and plays on your mental health is things like, you know, I can't do this. It's just too much. I'll never meet that deadline. Or I can't get anything right. My boss is going to come down on me like a ton of bricks because I just can't get this right. I'm such a failure. I'm never going to be able to do that. Watch yourself with that negative talk and try to see for yourself, what is that negative voice that comes up in your head and what does it normally say to you? Because we've all got it. We can't get away from it. What you need to do about that is be aware. You know, be aware of it. Check it if it's correct. Consider it for a while, but let it go. And then reframe it or rephrase it. And you could say things like, this is difficult. This deadline is tight, but I'm going to give it my best shot. That's a good example of reframing. And if you really find yourself stuck, yes, 3 short things you can do, 3 C's, as I like to call them. You can catch that negative thought. You can check it. Is it really a fact? Is it really true? And then you can change it by saying something more positive to yourself to help you keep motivated. So almost done. I just want to look quickly at self-care, and I've kind of touched on it already. But I want you to know that self-care is not something that's nice to have. It's not something that only women do. That is a myth. Both men and women need to engage in self-care. It's that intentional thing that you do to look after yourself. It helps you to build resilience against stress. It helps you to charge your battery, and it helps you to keep going when you really need to. It is not selfish. It is not any special skill that you have to learn. It's not something that's going to take a lot of money or a lot of resources from you. And it's not something that's indulgent. Yes, it's lovely if it can be something like a day at the spa or a lovely massage. That's good for us. That's a lovely break to have. That is good self-care. But that's not something we can do every day. So I want to ask you, and if you'll take just a minute now while you put it in the chat so we can look at it together in the next few minutes, but what are some of the ways you look after yourself? What do you do to take care of yourself and to charge your battery every day? One of my favorite things to do, and I'll share mine just to give you an idea, is I will try to take a break in the day and go sit outside with a cup of tea. I have a bird feeder in my garden. I put seeds in there, and I just take 5 minutes to watch the birds come and eat. And that makes me feel good. It charges my battery. It helps my brain to reset from all the stress I've been in that day. But please, in the chat, will you share what is that thing that you do to take care of yourself and to engage in self-care? Some ideas: listening to music, playing, a board game, going for a walk, maybe going to the gym, doing yoga. There's so many things that we can do. Even reading a book. Yes, treating yourself to something nice, whether it's a cup of tea, whether it's a chocolate, whether it's a a sweet treat. There's so many things that we can do, but you need to find what works for you. And I'm hoping that you will put that in the chat for us. Quickly looking at boundary setting, and then we basically done. I'm just seeing the time, it's 1:45 now. But boundaries is an important tool and an important part of self-care, but also in terms of just, you know, getting that sense of control over your life, getting that sense of balance and harmony without feeling guilty. So the first thing you need to do is assess, what are your boundaries? And again, I'll just share one that I have with you that's really been helpful for me. There's many I need to put in place, but this one is helpful. I don't work on a Saturday. I don't even open my laptop on a Saturday. And because I'm a counselor and people do ask me to do counseling for them, sometimes they'll ask, you know, can I book a session with you on Saturday? And I share my boundary of, no, I'm sorry, I don't work on a Saturday because that's my day with my family. But I can see you this evening, or I can help you after work if that will be helpful for you. So communicate your boundary up front, know what it is, and communicate your boundary. And then it also helps with work. You keep those relationships professional, within working hours. That's important. You delegate where you can. That's a part of setting a boundary. And not just at work, but even at home. Are there things that, you know, those who you live with, your family, your loved ones, are there things that they could do to help you? And that is a boundary that you can set. You know, I said to my son the other day, I don't always have time to unpack the dishwasher. It takes a lot of my time. He's 12 years old. He's very capable. I delegated that to him, and I said, it's now your responsibility that every day when you come home from school, you take 5 minutes to unpack the dishwasher. And that's going quite well for now, and it's taking a lot of stress off me. Sometimes we need to say no. I've touched on that with you already. Sometimes we just need to say no, that we can't fit it in, that we can't get it done. And that's okay. Take time to step away from a situation as well. If you're finding it's too much to deal with right then and there because maybe your battery is low, step away from it. Take a moment to think about it before you respond, before you come back with your answer. And also use I messages where you can. That's a very helpful one, where you express how you are feeling rather than focusing on the person by saying, you know, you need to do this. You always ask me to do way too much. You putting too much stress on me. You can say, I need you to please unpack the dishwasher because I'm struggling to fit everything in right now and work is really busy. And I'll find it so helpful if you could do this for me. So can you see, I've said I, instead of saying you all the time. And boundaries can sound like, I will end this phone call if you continue to shout at me. I need time to think about it. I'll come back to you. I don't respond to work emails at the weekend. I respect your opinion, but this is my life and it's my decision to make. So there's little ways you can use that I message to set boundaries for yourself in your personal life and in the workplace without being rude and without feeling guilty. And I want to challenge you to do that. So I'm finishing off now to say, work-life balance is about creating a life that flows with you rather than a life that you just have to power through. So like that poor hamster on the wheel just has to keep powering through and keep running and running and running. You have to find a flow. You have to find a pace for yourself. And hopefully some of the tips I've shared with you can do that. Finishing quickly to remind you about the EAP services. Really that it's a 24-hour service that ICRAS provides in a person's mother tongue as well. The counsellors are equipped with all languages. There's personal and professional work and life issues that they assist you with. It's for your family, for those in your home, as well as for yourself. And you don't need to be in crisis or be experiencing trauma to use the EAP. You could even just use the EAP to help find some balance, to find that work-life integration, or to help you to learn to set more boundaries, as an example. So I just want to share that with you, and of course remind you that it's always confidential between yourself and the EAP professional that you're working with. So from my side, that's me done. I want to say thank you so much for listening to me. We always value feedback. So please, if you have any feedback on today's session, you're very welcome to share it with us. I'm going to share the slides as well. And then there's a QR code here that you could scan to give us some feedback. I'm now going to stop sharing and go back to the main screen and just check in with everyone.
Thank you.
Right. Hi.
Thank you, Karen, for your sharing. I believe that we got a lot of tips to balance work and life. So we will have like a couple minutes for some questions for you. So let's go with a question. Say, okay, if someone lazy, I'm lazy. Everyone lazy for some time, you know, for a period of time. Someone lazy and you need the skill work-life balance. Okay, it's a good question. How should we deal with?
Yeah, that is a good question. My first thought is we can't control other people's behavior, you know, so that's a difficult one. We have to look at ourselves and what can we do. But if, for example, you're a manager or a supervisor of an employee like that, I would say to you, maybe they're not challenged enough. You know, we become lazy when we're not challenged enough and when we're not motivated. So I would have a conversation with that person to say, you know, I've noticed that you're always making excuses and you don't seem motivated at work anymore. What can you share with me? What is going on? Or is there something that I can do to help you feel more challenged and to get you more motivated? I believe an honest conversation is the best part, rather pretending that we don't see it and we get frustrated with that person and we start to get angry and then we see that conflict starting to happen. So an honest conversation to tell them what you're seeing and using an I message is a very good way to deal with that.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. It's a very great information for us to reference on. About myself, you know, like personally, I joined not more than one webinar talking about work life. And every time after joining, I get like at least one message from myself to apply in life. Usually like we have a lot of tips, but like go A to B to C to D, like it's really hard for us. So at least we apply one first. And I am curious about you, Karen, like, you know, you are a counselor. You know the tips to apply to balance your life and your work, but how you ever have a situation that is very take for a long time for you to overcome the challenge or overcome the emotion, even though you are a counselor, you know it, but it takes a long time for you. If you don't mind, can you share with us?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I think it's something we all struggle with, and I agree with you. Sometimes it takes a long time to get it right. And I think for me, the best thing is also that I've made peace that not every day I'm going to get it right. Today is a great day for work-life balance. I've got enough work to keep me busy, to keep me focused, but I've also put in that time that I can go to the gym, that I can fetch my son from school today. I've scheduled it as best, you know, that I can. And I think that's really the only tip at the end of the day I can share. It's that scheduling your time and remembering that you can't be in 3 places at once. Look at what is the key priority there. Yes, it might be that work, there's an important meeting, so I'm going to have to be in that. I'm going to need to find support for my son to come home, you know, get a lift from school today. So it's different for each one of us, you know, as you're saying, you know, try for yourself as well. And you've got to find what works for you. And taking it one day at a time is also helpful. You know, wake up today and do the best you can today. Don't worry too much about next week, Wednesday, or next week, Thursday, because you can't even predict what's going to happen. You can control today, and you can control the hours that you have today, and do the best you can.
Yeah. Thanks, Karen, for your sharing. We have a little bit like a minute left, but I see another questions like from attendants say that our brand tend to negative first, and how we change it. Like we should think about like the positive first more than think about the negative first. I'm sometimes like that. I focus too much on the dark side more than like think about the bright side first. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's so true. What I want you to visualize, thank you for that question, because it's wonderful. I shared the tips of you need to catch yourself when you're doing that, and you need to change it by even saying to yourself, you know, something positive. I'm doing okay. I've got this. I'm going to get through today. It's going to be all right. You need to tell yourself. But I want you to picture that, you know, your brain, if it's very negative, it's like a field of beautiful flowers, and there's a path through that field, and that path is well worn. You know, when you look at it, you can see that path exactly, and that's where you go. That's where your thoughts go, because your brain has made that path for the negative thoughts. Now I want you to picture a field with no path. And you're going to start walking that path. You've got to walk those flowers flat to get a new path going. And that's what you have to do with your thoughts. Every time you think a positive thought, you're making a new pathway in your brain. You're walking down those flowers in that field so that a path is being created. Excuse me. And what happens then is your brain starts to shift more into a positive way, because that path has been created, and it becomes easier for your brain to go that way. But you got to take the steps. You've got to walk by thinking positive thoughts, making yourself think positive thoughts. That's the work that needs to be done.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to try to drive your brain in a new way, because sometimes people like just like me, like we are normal. We just try to see some dark first, or we don't try, but we just automatically see the dark first, see the negative first. And I think it's quite useful for myself. I hope that the attendants here also like get a good message from you. I really like the way that you said, like, we are normal, we not hero, we are human, and we need to know the way to charge ourselves. We like an iPhone, we like a Samsung phone, we like a phone. Like when we our battery, we low battery, we need to know the way to charge ourselves. And I believe that like in life and in work, we try to balance, but it's never balanced. I don't think it's easy to get it balanced. But how to deal with the situation, how to use the tips from Carol today is more important, because we're normal, we're not hero, we cannot achieve, and everything will be fine. So thanks so much for your time today, Karen. And also thanks for everyone joining. You know, I know that you're super busy today, but still have like 1 hour with us. And we looking forward to see you in the next webinar from Mercer. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen, again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon. Take care. Go charge your batteries. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Bye-bye.